Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be taking a look at another offering from Wildpass Studios. It's their female Protoceratops Sentry. This is another figure available through their Shapeways shop, just like the previously reviewed Protoceratops. This figure retails for just around $10 if you go with the cheapest option to get it 3D printed. There are multiple options on this figure. I think the most expensive one is around $32 if you want some of that really fine detail from the 3D render. So here it is with the first release from Wildpass. Here is their 135 scale Protoceratops. You can see this figure is a little bit smaller. It's meant to represent a female. So I do like this sculpt on here. I do like the inclusion of the log. If you buy a couple of these, you can have a nice little Protoceratops family going on. So since I went with the cheaper option, the detail on this figure is really not that pronounced. You can actually make out the nostril and the eye just a little bit. But once I get this painted up, you can see a lot of fine detail on here that the paint should bring out. I like the texturing on the log. So yeah, definitely a cool figure that I am looking forward to painting. Now this is made out of 3D casted material, so it is quite fragile, especially these little thin legs on the back. It's not flexible like the material used on the mainline released Protoceratops. So let's get this little figure painted up and see how it looks. All right, let's get this little figure painted up. I'll be using the cheap apple barrel acrylic paint so you can find at Walmart for about 50 cents a tube. So the base color of this figure is going to be khaki colored. I thinned the paint just a little bit with water just to get a nice even coat on here. And now that the Protoceratops is primed, you can see there is some nice detail on this little 3D printed model. For the next step, I'm going to use some terrestrial beige for the log. I'm just going to give it a wash of that terrestrial beige, to bring out the log detail. And then a little bit of dark gray dry brushing to highlight the bark on the log. And some brown for the main body coloration. And then we're going to use just a little bit of black paint to just finish off this figure. I'm going to add spots with a toothpick. And a little bit more brown for the coloring on the frill. And here is the little Protoceratops all painted up. I wanted the paint scheme to be very similar to the first release from Wildpass, their original Protoceratops, just so I can create a little bit of a diorama. And as you can see, the Shapeways version is a little bit smaller than the first Protoceratops from Wildpass. So let's just do a couple quick measurements on this tiny figure. This figure is about 1.75 inches long and just about 1.25 inches high. So Protoceratops in real life was just under 6 feet long. So with those measurements, that put this figure somewhere in that 140 scale range. I'm glad I chose to paint it similar to the original Wildpass Protoceratops. Then you can have a nice little diorama scene with the first release. And I always like to throw in the Kyoto Protoceratops as the male watching over the family group. And eventually I will repaint this little Protoceratops I got from Kayakasaurus, and I can just have a nice little Protoceratops diorama going on my bedstand. And lastly, here it is with the other Shapeways Wildpass figure there, Protoceratops. You can see this Protoceratops scales pretty well with it. So yeah, I definitely like this Protoceratops figure. It was a fun little do-it-yourself painting project. You know, like I said, if you're handy with a brush, these figures are pretty great for your collection. And it's nice to have another Protoceratops figure. There's really not a lot of them out there. And the ones that are available, they are pretty small, so they pretty much scale with most people's collections. So if you're looking to add a little bit more Protoceratops variety to your collection, I do highly recommend you pick this figure up. It's not bad for $10. And like I said at the beginning of the video, there's a link to the Shapeways store in the description just below the video. I end up going for the cheaper option, like I said, a couple of times. As you upgrade to a more expensive material, the details will be a little bit finer, but for such a small model, I think the basic version does just fine. So that would do it for this little review. I have a bunch of stuff coming in from PNSO. PNSO has come roaring back the last week, almost like every day or every other day they've been releasing a new figure. So I have a bunch of those coming in. And I have wave one of the Beast of the Mesozoic, which should be shipping within a couple weeks. So November's looking like a really good review month. There's going to be a lot of reviews coming, so stay tuned for those. And as always, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, show your support by hitting that subscription button just below the video. Each subscription helps out the channel tremendously, and it's greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys for the next one.